We have another key race alert right now. 66% of the estimated vote is now in. Bernie Sanders maintains his lead over Pete Buttigieg, 26.4% to 23.9%. He's got a lead of 4,764 votes. Amy Klobuchar in third place with 20%. Elizabeth Warren, 9.3%. Joe Biden, 8.5%. Jake, let's go back to you.
All right, Wolf, thanks so much. Well, let's check in with campaign headquarters of the two frontrunners in New Hampshire. And let's start with Ryan Nobles, who's at Sanders headquarters in Manchester. And Ryan, the race is tightening a bit, but still, Senator Sanders in the lead. If he pulls this out, this will mean he won the popular vote in Iowa. He won the New Hampshire primary. He will be, I believe, the undisputed frontrunner for the Democratic presidential nomination.
Yeah, that's right, Jake, and there's no doubt that that's what this crowd is hoping to see. But it is safe to say that within the last 45 minutes or so, as we're starting to see these numbers tighten up a little bit, that there's been a bit of nervous anticipation here in this room, where earlier tonight we saw them cheering loudly at many different moments, a kind of a buoyant atmosphere, almost like a party-like atmosphere. Now that the numbers have tightened up, they are a little bit more concerned about how this is playing out. Now, to be clear, the Sanders team still feels pretty confident that this is going to end up in the Vermont Senators' favor. They're certainly not ready to declare victory, but they do believe that there are a couple of key areas where they know that their candidate is strong that have yet to come in. One of them being Derry. They expect him to do well there. Plymouth is another one. And then, of course, the college town of Durham. That's where Sanders concluded his campaign here in New Hampshire last night with a massive crowd featuring the band The Strokes. That's where the University of New Hampshire is. So that is another place where they expect to do very well, and those returns have yet to be recorded. So, yeah, there's no doubt this race has tightened up. There's no doubt that it's made people here nervous, but they still feel when all the votes are finally counted that Bernie Sanders will be able to walk away here with a victory, but they're not ready to declare victory quite yet. Jake?
All right, Ryan Nobles at Sanders headquarters in Manchester. Let's go now to Nashua, New Hampshire, where we find Abby Phillip at the headquarters of South Bend, Indiana, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And Abby, it's getting tighter and tighter. The Buttigieg team already looking to finish in a strong second place, but it's getting closer and closer. It's a 2.2% gap as of right now.
Yeah, and pretty much the polar opposite reaction from the crowd here in this room. As the race has gotten tighter, they have been getting more and more excited. Now, this is exactly what the campaign really had been hoping for. I spoke to a senior advisor earlier this morning who said what they are looking for is the same thing that they were looking for in Iowa. It's all about the delegate count, all about getting this race as close as they can possibly get it. And considering that we are now talking about something like a 2-point margin between the two of them, that's something that they think is better than what the public polling had been showing, but it's about where they had hoped to be all night long. Now, one of the things that I'm also hearing from the Buttigieg campaign is that they are looking at, how the southern part of the state is coming in. There are still some parts of the state haven't gotten any results yet, and they're expecting and hoping that he will do well to continue to make this race as close as they could possibly make it. Also want to point out, just to give you a sense of their thinking, they're looking at some of these exit polls showing that the Buttigieg voters really decided in the last few days, maybe even the last day or so. They think that's a great sign for them that he's able to do that persuasion part of it, convincing people to come over in the final days before voting begins, Jay.
And that's right. We know Hanover, New Hampshire, home of Dartmouth College, has not reported yet, and Buttigieg is up there. That hasn't reported. It is 2.1%, Anderson, separating Sanders in the lead, Buttigieg right behind him, only 2.1 percentage points with 69% in. Anderson?
Yeah, more than 30% of the vote still to be counted. Governor McAuliffe, what does it say that yet again, second time in a row, we now have a Sanders-Buttigieg race for the top spot?
Well, listen, that looks like Bernie could win this, but it's not the night he'd hoped for. I mean, I think most people thought he would have won 5 to 10 percentage points. I mean, he's a neighboring state. He's got more money than any other candidate in the race. He won it, 4 years ago by 22 points. So he's got to be looking at this, running against someone who had no name ID 5 months ago. I mean, it's truly extraordinary what's going on. And you sort of saw it in Iowa. I'll give Pete credit. I think he drove turnout. I think Bernie said he was going to drive turnout. I think Pete's one actually drove turnout, and I think Amy drove some turnout. This is what we have to be looking for as we head into the fall election against Trump.
I think that's the biggest issue here, which is why aren't Democrats turning out in droves?
Right.
I mean, Bernie Sanders said he had a huge get-out-the-vote operation, and you can talk about that, but the voters just didn't come out, and it's a problem. I think Democrats are worried about it, and Bernie, don't forget, does a little better because you have the moderate vote being split between Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Warren, Biden, and so Bernie can win, but they're splitting that vote, and that's that's an issue. I put Warren in there. Maybe I shouldn't have, but she's the unity candidate lately, so I'll put her in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there's more candidates in the field. Bernie Sanders still beats 7 of the other contenders right now, regardless of where the vote is coming out. And I think, in looking at these exit polls, he's getting 40% of the Latino vote. He's also winning a majority of independents. And I think that there are thousands of young people like myself who are so excited about the momentum of Bernie Sanders right now and are very confused, actually, that is not one of the bigger stories of the comeback compared to what seems to be a focus on Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. I think this is still a huge moment.
But what about
for the
turnout?
progressive
That's
movement.
the question.
Well, I think that, I think that is a concern for all Democrats.
Right.
I think every single campaign, if you are not worried that Democrats aren't turning out in droves, that's a problem. But I also think when you're looking at young people, when you're looking at working class people in this state, they are coming out, and the people that don't typically turn out
isn't
are
Bernie Sanders' entire pitch? Yeah, we got to get a revolution. We have to get a massive amount of new people, young people, excited people into this in order to get this very revolutionary agenda through, in order to get Medicare for all, in order to get all this stuff. And if you don't have that,
then you're going to get beat. His whole rationale is there's a bunch of people who are sitting on the bench, sitting on the couch, who are just uninspired by politics as usual. But if you come forward with something different and fresh, they're going to come out of the hills and hollers and vote for you. And so far, we're not seeing that. Let's not forget, though, in New Hampshire, younger people, especially students, are having a harder time voting. Don't forget that. They changed the rules. They changed the laws. You have to register your car to be able to vote. I don't know what your car has to do with your ability to vote, but students can't just go and vote. And so that does push down a little bit on the Bernie Sanders' ability to operate there. He's got to be able to deal with that in other states with similar rules and similar laws. I think something else is going on, though. I think people are depressed.
Yeah.
I think people are sad. I think people can't figure out which of these people are supposed to vote for, and I think people are waiting to come out to vote against Donald Trump. I do think that this is an aberration. We're in this weird thing where, to your point earlier, people were coming out to vote on a Wednesday for an off-election county commission meeting because they felt there was a binary choice. This is a messy, confusing choice. People are sad and depressed, and people just want somebody to vote for against Trump.
I just don't think sad and depressed. I don't think our Democrats are sad and depressed. I really don't. You look at turnout in 18 when
Terry's
we won
never
the
said
House. Yeah, well, I'm never sad and depressed. I don't think that.
What
but I do agree with your point,
terrified?
I'm confused and terrified.
But where they are, and I think as Gloria talked about earlier, why people are waiting back on this, they want to beat Trump so badly. They're just not sure
There's a
who's going to do it.
paralysis. 48% are making up their mind in the last few days. This campaign has been going on for over a year.
It's also possible that people are feeling a little ground down right now. We've just gone through this convulsive impeachment process. We just don't know right now. I do want to speak to this Buttigieg question because for the second straight, just listening to David Chalian report on these exit polls, what is striking, and we saw it last week in Iowa as well, is Buttigieg runs relatively well across all categories.
Right.
He does well with men. He does well with women. He does well with younger people. He does well with younger people and older people. He does well in different kinds of communities. And he has done a good job of casting a broad message that is hitting a large target, and that will keep him in this.
I just want to point out it is now only 1.8% between Buttigieg and Sanders. It was about 3.5%. Probably an hour or so ago, so it is continues to be some tightening.
I mean, this is sort of the manifestation of his message. His has been, everybody's jumping on the unity bandwagon here, but that's sort of been the essence of his message, and it is reflected in these numbers. You know, eventually you can't be second in every category and get to where you want to get to. You have to consolidate some support. But this is a strength of his candidacy.
We saw that in Iowa, too.
We did, absolutely.
Can I say that as we get further into this, I think that all these candidates are refining their pitch, and I took note of the fact that Senator Klobuchar, in her statement tonight, I almost said her victory speech, but she specifically referenced people in the middle as being Donald Trump's worst nightmare, and then made a direct pitch for independent and moderate Republicans. I think that approach is serving her well. I note that in the exit surveys, she won the category among those voters who said, who among these folks can most unite the country? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a wise pitch on her part and is paying dividends.
Yeah.
Listen, I thought her speech was spectacular.
It was great.
Yeah.
Hello, America. I'm Amy Klobuchar, and I'm going to be Donald Trump.
Yeah.
She talked about how she's setting up against Trump, and then she talked about how I dealt with a nor'easter and I gave my speech in a blizzard. She's showing people that she is tough, and that's what Democrats.
Yeah, but I think she also has a great personal story and a great personal touch, and she's accessible. And she gives people a sense that she identifies with.
I think what she did, I wish all these Democrats would do. She started telling stories. Mm-hmm. That's the great. When you think about a Bill Clinton, you think about a Barack Obama, you think about the greats. They pull you in with stories, and the stories take you someplace. Mm-hmm. And she had that great opening line. She kind of talked about stuff I didn't hear, and then she started talking about her grandparents.
Yes. And
I was transfixed from that moment on, and I felt like people started paying attention. I think that the idea that there's an American story that somebody can tell to bring us back to our best selves, that's what's been missing, and Amy Klobuchar pulled that off tonight.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to have more of our coverage. 71% of the vote now counted for. We'll continue to count the votes ahead.